Amidst the ruthless desert of the Wild West, Caleb the King Blackwood, a gang leader consumed by a thirst for power, robbed a train expecting gold. Instead, he unleashed a secret that had hidden the crimes of powerful figures for decades. His insane ambition and desire to blackmail Washington threatened to plunge the nation into even greater chaos. But one man, the humble Lynch, found a way to strike back at fate from within the heart of that darkness. Prepare to discover how his courage unveiled a long-buried truth and why justice ultimately prevailed, ending an era of lies. The searing heat of August 1888 shimmered over Scorpion Valley, heat haze dancing on the horizon like ghostly lakes. In this desolate land, where every stone seemed to hold a tale of pain and faint hope, the Rattlesnake Gang prepared for their ultimate score. Their leader was Caleb the King Blackwood, a man whose eyes were cold as steel, his face marred by a scar, a relic from an old skirmish. Caleb believed in no laws, only power. His dream was simple and brutal, to forge his own empire, where his word was law and gold its foundation. Their target was the Desert Phantom, a legendary Union Pacific freight train, rumored to be carrying an army's gold reserves this time. Caleb's gang was a motley crew of desperate souls, former soldiers, drifters, and desperate farmers, all bound by greed and an absolute fear of the king. Every man was sure, today they'd hit a jackpot that would change their lives. Everything went according to plan. The train, slowly crawling through the desert, was packed with unsuspecting passengers. Old conductor George could hardly have imagined what awaited him. The Rattlesnakes executed a classic ambush, explosives on the tracks, a loud blast, and a brief but fierce shootout with the meager guards. Passengers, gripped by anxiety, were herded into one car, their hearts pounding with intrigue. What were these outlaws after? But Caleb cared nothing for passenger wallets or petty cargo. His attention was fixed on the armored freight car at the very end of the train. Blowing the lock, the outlaws stormed inside. Their hopes of finding piles of gold ingots crumbled. In the center of the car stood a massive iron-bound wooden crate. On its side, almost worn away by time, were just two initials: KL. A strange, almost palpable cold radiated from the crate, a stark contrast to the unbearable desert heat outside. This filled Caleb with surprise, and his men with a vague, unsettling premonition of something entirely different from what they'd expected. Intrigue hung heavy in the air, thick as desert dust. "What in hell is this?" one of the outlaws muttered, as Caleb, despite his own unease, ordered the crate opened. Their curiosity was stronger than any fear, pushing them to uncover something that should have remained hidden. Caleb, driven by curiosity and hunger, ripped the lid off the crate. No golden gleam blinded them. Instead, an unexpected sight hit them, making the outlaws' hearts clench. The crate was packed with hundreds of tightly bound folders of yellowed papers, old faded photographs, thick leather-bound diaries, and sealed letters. Every single one of these documents was linked to one name: General Custer. And at the very bottom, beneath the pile of records, lay a massive, meticulously sealed metal cylinder bearing the same KL initials as the crate itself. This was a true shock. Discovering not treasure, but such a strange collection of archives in such an unusual container, it was far more profound than they could have imagined. One of the outlaws, Lynch, a former clerk from a small town, pulled out a parchment with trembling hands. What he saw made him turn pale, his eyes wide with horror. The documents were irrefutable proof of a secret conspiracy between high-ranking officials and influential gold prospectors. They revealed how these powerful figures had intentionally directed Custer's troops to Little Bighorn, knowing the grave danger. Their aim was clear. General Custer had uncovered their vast corruption schemes and was about to expose the truth. Before his demise, he managed to gather all these incriminating evidences and entrusted them to his most loyal man, who was meant to transport them on this very train. This information was far too dangerous for the powerful individuals who had kept their crimes in the shadows for decades. In every word of the letters, in every date of the diaries, there was such pain and despair. The pain of deceived soldiers destined for slaughter and of Native Americans whose lands were promised and then stolen. This bitter truth touched even the most hardened outlaws. Something akin to compassion flickered in their eyes. They hadn't just committed another train robbery. They had accidentally breached a monumental state secret, bringing to light evidence of a colossal crime that could rock all of Washington. A tense silence hung in the air, broken only by Caleb's heavy breathing. His eyes now gleamed not just with greed, but with a wild idea: to use this colossal secret for his own ends. Caleb, ignoring the growing unease among his men, made a firm decision. This archive was far more valuable than any gold, for it promised true power. He immediately ordered the crate of documents moved to his carefully hidden refuge, an abandoned mine deep within the inaccessible canyons. Caleb's motivation had shifted dramatically. Now, he sought not merely an empire, but absolute control over those who deemed themselves above all law. He saw these documents as a powerful tool for blackmailing and overthrowing high-ranking officials who held power. He became obsessed with the idea that he would now stand above the law, pulling the strings of puppets in Washington. Lynch, the only one in the gang who could read and decipher the old records, was assigned to the archive. He tried to reason with Caleb, warning him of the immense danger in what they were doing. These documents could lead not just you, but all of us, to ruin at the hands of powerful enemies, Lynch insisted. Those people will stop at nothing to keep their secrets. But Caleb merely sneered, calling his words cowardice. His anger mounted with every minute Lynch delayed in deciphering and organizing the data. Caleb threatened that if Lynch didn't work harder, he'd publicly expose all the secrets just to demonstrate his newfound power, regardless of who suffered. In those moments, Lynch felt an overwhelming helplessness mixed with a desperate realization. He was a captive, but his main goal was now to prevent Caleb from using the truth for new atrocities that would lead to even more bloodshed. The first signs of looming trouble weren't long in coming. As Caleb delved deeper into the documents, it became clear they were being hunted. Unknown riders would occasionally appear on the horizon, leaving only faint tracks in the sand. Within a few miles of the mine, strange accidents began to befall any strangers who ventured too close to Caleb's territory. One outlaw, Jesse, a seasoned veteran who seemed to fear nothing, suddenly became intensely paranoid, whispering that they know and they're coming for us, until Caleb silenced him. This wasn't ordinary pursuit. This was the work of highly skilled professionals who had guarded their secret for decades and would not allow it to surface. Lynch, observing all this, realized he had been absolutely right. These people were not just powerful, they were ruthless. By attempting to wield their secret, Caleb had signed his own death warrant and endangered everyone around him. Lynch's objective became crystal clear. He had to stop Caleb and ensure these documents reached the proper authorities, or the Wild West would drown in even greater lies and blood. Tension in the abandoned mine reached its peak. Caleb's gang was on the verge of total collapse. Some had already deserted, gripped by panic from the unseen yet palpable threat. Only the most fanatical and reckless remained, with the king, clinging to his promises of unimaginable power. Caleb, however, was blinded by his ambition. He was preparing the final transmission of information to blackmail federal officials, convinced of his victory. He forced Lynch to organize the last, most compromising documents, threatening him and the remaining outlaws. Lynch, realizing he had no other choice, prepared the documents, but did so with a specific purpose. He skillfully wove hidden messages and clues into them, designed to lead federal marshals directly to Caleb and, most importantly, to the complete archive he held. He acted with incredible subtlety, adding small but clear markers that only an experienced investigator could recognize. In his eyes burned pure determination. He fought not for revenge, but for justice and to stop a new, far more dangerous tyrant. At the climactic moment, just as Caleb dispatched a courier with his blackmail, Lynch made his move. He seized the opportunity when most of the outlaws were distracted and activated a pre-prepared mechanism that engaged the mine's old ventilation system, creating a strange but loud noise. Suddenly, on the horizon, columns of dust appeared through the desert haze. It was a detachment of federal marshals, led by the legendary Marshal Wyatt, who had long been tracking the Rattlesnake Gang. They had received a tip-off thanks to Lynch's hidden messages, relayed by one of the escaped outlaws who had realized the scale of the danger. A fierce shootout erupted, its echoes reverberating through the canyons. It was a relieving shock for everyone awaiting the outcome. Caleb, instantly realizing he had been betrayed, flew into a furious rage. He lunged at Lynch, but at that crucial moment, Marshal Wyatt fired, putting an end to King Blackwood's tyranny. The mine shook from the gunshots, and soon the gang was overwhelmed. Lynch, weakened but alive, handed Marshal Wyatt all the documents that exposed decades of corruption and conspiracy. Marshal Wyatt, stunned by the scope of the revealed secret, promised Lynch full protection in exchange for his testimony, and crucially, guaranteed that this truth would finally come to light. Thanks to Lynch's courage and the information he provided, the largest corruption scandal in Wild West history was exposed. High-ranking officials were arrested, and justice, which had been hidden in the shadows for decades, finally triumphed. Lynch, having endured fear and despair, found freedom and became a witness who changed the course of history. The story of the train robbery was whispered, but now with a new, profound meaning. No one ever truly learned what drove King Blackwood to rob that particular train, but everyone knew that because of it, they unleashed a secret, hidden for decades. It became a relief for the entire Wild West, bringing an end to an era of lies and opening the way to a new, more honest chapter.